Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share, and subscribe. This is the video that I was going to make yesterday. However, the letter that was sent to Frank Gold was so disturbing to me that I thought I'd make that one first. So today's video is regarding how Richard Allen has to be the bridge guy. And I want the people who absolutely believe that Richard Allen is not the bridge guy to write something in the comment section and explain to me how that's possible given the information that was on the probable cause document. You'd have to believe that it's all made up information, I guess, is your argument. All right, so let's take a look at sort of the foundation of the probable cause. So here's the first screenshot that I want you to look at. That's from the probable cause. It says, investigators reviewing prior tips encountered a tip narrative from an officer, and that's Dan Doolin, who interviewed Richard M. Allen in 2017. That narrative stated, Mr. Allen was on the trail between 1:30 and 3:30. He parked at the old Farm Bureau building and walked to the new Freedom Bridge. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw three females. He noted one taller and had brown or black hair. He did not remember description, nor did he speak with them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone. Now, obviously, law enforcement would be able to verify if he was using his phone, because that would have had to use a cell tower. So is Richard Allen lying then? And won't that prove exactly when he was on the trail? Also, a lot of people think, oh, they just invented the 1:30 to 3:30 time. Well, then why didn't they change this part where it says he parked at the old Farm Bureau building? All right, later he said it was the old building, all right, but the old Farm Bureau building, there was one downtown Delphi, like over a mile away, and that doesn't really make any sense that he parked there, then went to the Freedom Bridge. There's an old building right next to the Freedom Bridge, which was the abandoned CPS building, and you could walk. It's not there anymore, they've taken it down. There's a little trail from there that walks right to the Freedom Bridge. So that is what Richard Allen's actually talking about, but of course, the people that want to believe in Richard Allen, they're going to go with some obscure Farm Bureau building downtown. But why didn't law enforcement just put here the abandoned CPS building? You know, if you're saying that they're inventing stuff, they could have easily just put that in there, right? But they didn't. They said the old Farm Bureau building, but they believe that he's referring to the abandoned CPS building. Then on October 13, 2022, Richard Allen was interviewed again by investigators. Now, that first interview we just read was right after the murders. Now, did Richard Allen get a hold of the law enforcement? He actually called the tip line. Did he do that because he passed those three juveniles and he has a public job working at the CVS pharmacy and wanted to get ahead of the story? Or is it also possible that the image of the person on the bridge, there's a still frame that was put out of Bridge Guy, for lack of a better term, 2 or 3 days after the murders. Did Richard Allen see that and say, wow, that's me and those three girls saw me, so I better get ahead of this and call law enforcement, and Dan Doolin was sent out? I guess we'll have to figure out when the timing of that image was put out, but it does seem like he wanted to get ahead of it. So again, on October 13, 2022, Richard Allen was interviewed again by investigators. He advised he was on the trails on February 13, 2017. He stated he saw juvenile girls on the trails east of Freedom Bridge and that he went out onto the Monon High Bridge. Richard Allen further stated he went out onto the Monon High Bridge to watch the fish. Later in his statement, he said he walked out to the first platform on the bridge. He stated he then walked back, sat on a bench on the trail, and then left. He stated he parked his car on the side of an old building. Now he doesn't refer to it as the old Farm Bureau building. He told investigators that he was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood. He advised he may have been wearing some type of head covering as well. He further claimed he saw no one else except for the juvenile girls he saw east of the Freedom Bridge. BW showed investigators a photograph. This is one of the three. There was 4 girls out there. One of them was a very young juvenile, like 8 or 9, and the rest of them were in their teens. BW was one of the older ones. Showed investigators photographs she took on her phone while she was on the trail that day. The photographs included a photo of the Monon High Bridge taken at 12:43 p.m. and another one taken at 1:26 p.m. of the bench east of the Freedom Bridge. BW advised after she took the photo of the bench, which was 1:26, they started walking back towards the Freedom Bridge. She advised that was when they encountered the man who matched the description of the photograph taken from Libby's video. BW described the man she encountered on the trails as wearing a blue or black windbreaker jacket. All right, so BW, out of the three older people of the three, there was, there was four girls there. Three of them were teens, and one of them was a younger person and quite a bit smaller, so maybe that's why Richard Allen didn't see that person. All right, but law enforcement also only interviewed three of them because one of them was so young. But BW gave a description that was very close. The other one said all black. The other one said light blue pants and like a really light blue jacket. Okay, so they all had, they were sort of in the same ballpark, because when you look at the bridge guy, he's wearing kind of darker clothes. If you consider the top, the jeans aren't that dark, but when you're inside the tree line, it probably seems a little bit darker. And that might be exactly where they saw him, was right near the edge of the tree line as it exits out onto the Freedom Bridge. And then right here it says, investigators discovered Richard Allen owned two vehicles in 2017, a 2016 black Ford Focus and a 2006 gray Ford 500. Investigators observed a vehicle that resembled Allen's 2016 Ford Focus on the Hoosier Harvest Store video at 1:27 p.m., traveling westbound on CR 300 North in front of the Hoosier Harvest Store, which coincided with his statement that he arrived around 1:30 p.m. at the trails. And that sighting right there on the Hoosier Harvest Store video of Richard Allen's vehicle, or a vehicle that looks just like the one that he has, is very good circumstantial evidence that corroborates his initial statement to Dan Doolin that he got there at 1:30. Now I'll be showing you all of this on a map using an animation that I created in just a moment. And then this is where Richard Allen voluntarily was interviewed on October 13, 2022. This is from the Frank's memorandum. Watching the videotaped interview, it is apparent that Richard Allen thought he was being asked questions to help assist the police in solving the crime. Of course, that's from the defense perspective. I would expect nothing less. In trying to provide Liggett and Mullen a timeline of when he was at the trail, Richard stated he arrived at the trail around noon. Later in the interview, Richard Allen told Liggett and Mullen that he probably left the trail around 1:30 p.m. Now, that's verifiably false that he left at 1:30, and it's also verifiably false that he got there at noon. That is not accurate information, and it's provable. He obviously changed the time to be just outside of the original time frame he gave because he knows how important that was. And then keep this in mind. On April 3rd, 2023, Richard Allen made a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen. In that phone call, Richard Allen admits several times that he killed Abby and Libby. Investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard M. Allen admits that he committed the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. His wife, Kathy Allen, ends the phone call abruptly. And again, Kathy Allen at that point then, after she hung up the phone, got hold of his attorneys, and then they concocted this plan. Okay, yeah. Now he's been tortured in prison. They affected his brain, and now he's confessing because of that torture. It's not real. It's a coerced confession. It's false. It's not real. And by the way, Richard, what we need you to do is start drooling on your shirt, okay? And chew on some paper. That'll really sell that fact, okay? But even though we know that prior to the confession, he had been reading books, exercising, and things were going well. We know that Richard Allen was completely lucid when he confessed to his mother and wife. Okay, now let's take a look at this visually here. This right here is 12:43 p.m. This is where those three girls are. There was actually a fourth, like I said, a smaller child. And this is 12:43. Now, if the girls were right here at 12:43, taking a picture at the bridge, then likely, let's just say that they were dropped off right here, and the way they are slowly moving around, I would say they got dropped off here at 12:33 and walked to the bridge, something like that. And also, we don't know how long they were there before they took the picture. Did they quickly get to the bridge, and take a picture at 12:43? We don't know. However, when they left, they went this way over the Freedom Bridge. So that would probably mean that they came in this direction. And I would say at the very latest, they got there at 12:20. 12:20 in this area, walking down the trail, they make their way over, and then at 12:43 they took this picture. So if Richard Allen, by his change story in 2022, he claims he got there at noon and left at 1:30, those three girls would act as clearing agents for seeing him. So they would have got here at 12:20, walked down the trail. They didn't see anybody. They didn't see anybody. They didn't see anybody. They got here. They certainly didn't see anybody standing on platform 1. Then they started slowly kind of meandering around, hanging out, talking, walking back, and eventually make it to this area at 1:26. Still hadn't seen him. And then when they were leaving, they passed the guy that matches the individual on the bridge, which is Richard Allen, because he himself said he got there at 1:30, and circumstantially, a vehicle matching the description of his 2016 black Ford Focus drove by the Hoosier Harvest Store right here. All right, so let's go and check this out. So this is at 12:43. Those girls start walking back this direction. And they're just going to continue to walk. We don't know how, it took them 45 minutes or so to get up to this area. So they're just hanging out like kids do. They're chilling out on the trails. And then right here is 1:26. There's right there at a bench, and there's a photograph taken. And you can actually see that online. And then here is Richard Allen's vehicle, the black Ford Focus, driving by. Now that vehicle is going to pull up and park at the abandoned CPS building right here. And backs in, just like other witnesses saw that the vehicle was backed in on the side of the building. And then here's Richard Allen right here, exiting. And those girls are still just kind of meandering their way out of the area. And likely right around like 1:33, 1:34, they passed each other right around in this area here. So they pass each other right here. And they said he had his head down. He looked like he was on a mission. Kind of stern looking. One of them said his mouth was covered. He had a covering on his mouth. The other one said they couldn't see his mouth, which was interesting, right? Because that means two people noticed that they couldn't see his mouth. Richard Allen said when he got there, he went straight to the bridge. That's what he said. So here he is. Let's just go with this. He's walking down. He's right there. Now let's go back to where those girls are now. Notice how they're right here about to cross over the old State Road 25, and there comes Betsy Blair. And then she passes this camera right here at 1:47. Or 1:46, actually. And she parks and probably gets out of her car at 1:47-ish. She gets out and she starts making her way to the trail. Now, she's there to exercise, so she's moving pretty quickly. And Richard Allen, at this point, had made his way to right here. He's still standing on platform 1, because remember, he went there to look at fish. Do you think he just went there, looked at one fish, and turned around really quick and ran back? No. So let's just pause this for a second. Or actually, I can just go up here. If we scroll back just a little bit, Kelsey drove by the Hoosier Harvest Store at 1:49. So she drops the girls off, probably, 1:48 and some odd seconds. They get out, but they're just slowly walking around because they're like those other 3 girls, just taking pictures, etc. So there goes Betsy Blair heading towards the bridge, and this is Abby and Libby. And from here to here, it takes 10 minutes walking quickly. So if that was 1:34, it'd been 1:44 when Richard Allen got there. And remember, Betsy Blair got dropped off, or she got there at 1:46 or 7, which is just 3 minutes after Richard Allen would have got here. So when she got onto the trail here, she would have passed him. Had he went this way really quick and passed her, she would have seen him, but she didn't. That means he's still at the bridge. So she gets right to the start of the bridge and turns around immediately and goes the other direction. And Richard Allen was 50 feet away, standing on platform 1, looking at fish. So perhaps that's why Betsy Blair didn't really get a great look at him and has a different description than law enforcement originally put out on their sketch. The original sketch was a closer match. So then Betsy Blair actually passes Abby and Libby as they're walking towards the bridge, and Richard Allen is likely still here. At some point, though, Richard Allen probably noticed the 2 girls, but wanted to make them feel safe, so he passes them and allows them to get onto the bridge or do what they're going to do and feel safe. So maybe right around in this point right here, Richard Allen passes them and then walks back and then waits back in the woods there. If you notice the shot of Abby on the bridge, you can't see anybody in the background through the woods, so it's not a very high quality image or anything like that. I mean, it's clear, you can see it, but it's I think it's only like 720p. So if somebody was back in the woods there, you wouldn't be able to see him on that shot. And then there's another shot that Libby took with her phone of the full length of the bridge, and again, you don't see anybody. So what it means is that Richard Allen then walked back into the woods past them and then waited for the girls to go onto the bridge, and now he can trap them. If he came from the other side, the girls would then go the other direction and go back to the northwest and get out of there. So let's just speed it up here a little bit. So this is about when I think Richard Allen made his move. The girls are about halfway across, and then from the woods, he comes after them. All right, now up here we have Betsy Blair. I believe she went over to the Freedom Bridge, walked back, and is about to get to her car. If we go back down here, here's Richard Allen. And Libby turns the video on her camera and films the bridge guy coming at them at 2:13. And again, this is almost the exact same time that Betsy Blair gets in her vehicle and drives away. She passes the Hoosier Harvest Store at 2:14, which is right there. And at that point, that's already at the time when the bridge guy, Richard Allen, took out his gun, put a bolt in the chamber, said, told the girls down the hill after he first greeted them saying, guys, and Libby says something like, hey, and then they're wondering which way to go, etc. And then Abby says, he's got a gun, is that a gun? And then he says, down the hill. And then he forces the girls to go across. Now, what's really creepy about this is at that moment, Abby, Libby, and Richard Allen are the only people in the entire park at this time. Now later, other people start showing up. Derek got there at 3:15. An individual named Cheyenne, she came out there, a couple of her friends. They were walking around, the flannel shirt guy. And then Derek got there at like 3:15. He walked down the 505 trail, came back up this direction, and then he walked back over here to the Freedom Bridge, and then he made his way back over here at 4 o'clock. He never saw the bridge guy. Okay, he never saw him. And that's because Richard Allen took the 2 girls off over here and he killed them on the north side of Deer Creek, just below Ron Logan's property. All right? So explain to me out there, if you're not a defender of Richard Allen being the guy, and you think this is all just made up stuff, you explain this to me. How in the hell is this not Richard Allen? Let's go back and just do this again. Richard Allen, his vehicle drives right by the Hoosier Harvest Store at 127. He gets out, walks on the trail, passes 3 girls. They saw him, he saw them. Verifiably, he got there at 1:34-ish. Then he walks down the trail, and then he gets to the bridge, and he even says he's standing on platform 1 looking at fish. Betsy Blair described the person she saw as him standing on platform 1, and she was 50 feet away and then turned around. Her description of it is of a younger person, but she was 50 feet away, and it would have been from the side because he's standing on platform 1 looking at fish. All right, so Richard Allen is there. Betsy Blair gets there, walks down to the bridge, like I just said, turns around, and then passes Abby and Libby, who had just been dropped off at 1:49-ish. Then Betsy Blair continues to walk all the way around. We can just watch it right here. Maybe goes to the Freedom Bridge, comes back. The timing of that is absolutely perfect for her getting back to her vehicle at like 2:12. And then right here is Richard Allen having the girls go down the hill, and then he forces them across right there. If it's not Richard Allen, where did he go? Betsy Blair also serves as a clearing agent. When she's walking, she does not see anybody that looks like the bridge guy in any of this area right here. That's her. Abby and Libby aren't alive, so they can't tell us the answer to that question. Betsy Blair walked and only saw him right there. Then she walked all the way back the other direction, all the way back to perhaps the Freedom Bridge, and then turns around and walks back this direction again and doesn't see him at all. So why didn't she see him at all during that time? The 3 girls didn't see him from 12:43 until 1:40, but it was probably much earlier than that they got to the bridge, so they walked down the whole length of the trail. They didn't see him at all. They only saw him when he was coming in at 1:30. I think the evidence is really clear in this case that Richard Allen has to be the bridge guy. There's absolutely no escaping that. Now, you might think, okay, that doesn't prove he's a killer. Okay, I concede to that part. Okay, that I can say, I don't know if he's the killer 100%. I just know he's the one that kidnapped them, and that led to their death, and that would be felony murder. However, there's no information that there's another person involved. In fact, they have a bullet that was found at the scene that was ejected from Richard Allen's gun found at the scene. So that places him there. Apparently there is some level of DNA they found there with not very many markers. Now, if those markers match Richard Allen's, and it does not exclude him, let's say, then that will be a really big piece of damning information as well. And you take those facts and the fact that he confessed multiple times in a phone call and apparently to many other people. Now, we might say that after he confessed once, that the defense team likely instructed him to confess to other people over and over again with false facts so that they would make it look like the original confession was also false. But I don't think that's going to work. The original one, everything was fine. And then apparently everything was crazy. He started chewing paper and drooling on his shirt, etc., etc., etc. That's not going to fool anybody. All right, you guys. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you could please leave a comment in the comment section, that'd be great. I would really appreciate it. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I think this animation here really helps out quite a bit. It took me a long time to make this one. It's sort of scaled time. I don't put in the Sarah Carbaugh portion because that's not really important to me. It doesn't establish anything regarding, is that Richard Allen at the bridge? Okay, so again, thank you for watching. Leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.